I think in terms of feasibility, I really liked his take on that. Is it's feasible to do it now, but we have to start building the renewables now. As you said, green hydrogen is only possible with the green sources of energy, whether that be wind, solar, geothermal, and nuclear where it makes sense and it's affordable. We have to do that. We have to build out those clean sources of energy now, and that's the only way we're going to be able to do this feasibly.
Sure, thanks, David. And Jens, David set you up there perfectly. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. So we have to start now, and time is really flying. And I mean, sometimes you have the impression that people just by changing some figures, they think things move faster. Yeah, you remember we had 2050 was net zero for Europe, and then they put it to 2045, but they don't change the regulatory surroundings. Yeah, so it's a bit like not only believing in miracles, but even relying on them, and this will not work. We have to pick up the speed. We have to look into basically the permission process, because people will only invest if they have a legal framework which knows that their investment will sooner or later bear fruits. Yeah, it cannot be that it's only based on subsidies. We need subsidies for the breakthrough. This is very clear, because we're competing against mature equipment there. But sooner or later, there must be a plan to become basically stand on your own feet unsubsidized. And this is very, very important. And we have to have the strategy building stuff here in Europe, building stuff in the US, building stuff in Asia, but also using basically sources or places of our beautiful world which are blessed with renewable energy, produce there, and then set up a vector network of transportation routes to supply all of us. And this is, I think, is the core, and we really have to start now. There's no time to be wasted. Yeah? Otherwise, we are just looking into this 1.5 degree goal of Paris going away, then 2 degrees, then 2.5, and so on and so on. This cannot be an option. So that's why we really need to push for that, and we have to do it now. This is, I think, we are all burning enthusiasts for getting it moving now, and that's the time now.
Oh, indeed, thanks, Jens. And if we're getting it moving there with you, Augusto, what's your take on scalability and feasibility?
I mean, it's definitely feasible, definitely scalable, right? I mean, these technologies, they're not new technologies. I think a lot of the challenges we're facing are in terms of manufacturing and legislation. I mean, something we need to be aware as well, that, how Jens brought up about subsidies. A lot of companies, they can't just be built with the idea that they're going to succeed based on the subsidies or grants, because then we're going to find ourselves just holding the bag, a bit like what happened with solar panels back in the 2000s in Europe. So that's not something we want to avoid at all costs, and that's why it's up to us innovators to really innovate, not just on the way and the technology, but also in how we manufacture things and where we do things. Right, we're a global economy, so we don't necessarily have to produce the electricity in Europe or manufacture things in Europe. Potentially certain things can be outsourced, and also we're really migrating again to what will be vertical integration, which I think we touched on briefly earlier, where you specialize on one thing rather than trying to do everything as a whole, because that really, I mean, especially with new technology, you need to certify every little part, every gasket, every seal, everything of this. So by getting companies to specialize in certain aspects and then bringing it together is a much more efficient way to get there and to make things cheaper long term.